Shocking news. Lu Qizhong's younger brother was hit and killed by a truck while riding a motorcycle. Then came a second piece of bad news. Lu Qizhong's mistress is pregnant. The mistress said, "You have to give me 50,000 yuan. The family's money is controlled by his wife, so where can he get 50,000 yuan? He could borrow it from friends, but he doesn't think she's worth it." He and the mistress were not serious, it was just animalistic lust. Calling it lust is not quite right either, it makes them seem too desperate. They were not desperate for each other. He thought of the word because he saw lions on TV looking lazy before mating, and still lazy after, with no complex body language or facial expressions. They seemed so nonchalant. Lu Qizhong and his mistress were like that, even a bit cold. They never had any deep conversations, probably feeling the other was not worth it. Nothing like when he was young and in love, passionate, energetic, cautious yet ambitious. Every secret rendezvous, when they pulled up their pants, they were like strangers to each other. Now she suddenly says she's pregnant, who knows if it's true or not. Even if it is, Lu Qizhong thinks it may not necessarily be his. He delicately says, "Actually, I don't really know about your private life." The mistress says, "I already knew you were shameless, I just didn't know you were this shameless." He thinks, "How am I shameless? I didn't hide anything or lie to you, I just smiled at you more and said some sweet words, and you stuck your butt out. Now you want to slaughter me for 50,000 after washing your butt. Who is really shameless here? Anyway, no money for you." A couple days later the mistress calls again, saying if he doesn't give her the money, she'll tell his wife. He's a little scared, and a bit angry. She knows something big just happened in his family, yet she's still pulling this, has she no conscience? He can only soften his tone and reason with her. How much does an abortion cost? 1,000? 2,000? 3,000 max, right? You know I'm not rich. Asking for so much, I can't come up with it so quickly. And my brother just had an accident, my parents are in and out of the hospital from shock. I haven't even had the energy to speak this past month, have you asked how I'm doing even once? It's not that I don't want to give you money, it's that I really don't have it. If I were Jack Ma or Richard Liu, I'd give you 100 million if you asked. The mistress says, "I don't care. Now you're just being unreasonable." Reasonable? You're married yet fooling around outside, now you won't pay a cent when something happens. You think you're reasonable? If you want to talk reason, go call out your wife so we can all talk reason together. He's speechless. How about I go with you for the abortion first, then I'll pay you back slowly, in installments. It's only 50,000, how many installments are you planning? If you don't have money, ask your parents, they must have gotten a lot of compensation for your brother. Looks like this was premeditated. Lu Qizhong is extremely angry. To think the woman he was nice to is so sinister. He had thought he was somewhat charming before, now he realizes she doesn't have one iota of feelings for him, she's just been sharpening her knife waiting for a chance to cut him up. He decides to rip off the veneer with her, that's compensation for my brother, not mine. If I die, you can take however much you want from the compensation. Cursing himself won't solve anything, but at least it shows his attitude. But the mistress won't let up, are you going to ask or not? If not, I'll go ask. You go. He gnashes his teeth. Good, you said it. I said it. The anger and despair give him a sense of intoxication, he holds himself above with disdain. You just want money, right? Then say the child is my brother's, that's probably more likely to work. He thought there would be more back and forth bickering, then some haggling. He didn't expect her to actually go straight to his dad. And she actually said it was his late brother's posthumous child. When his dad called him, he almost fainted. His dad asked, "The girl said she was dating your brother before, and that you can testify to this. Is it true?" He sputtered for a bit. Her shamelessness exceeds all limits. After pausing for a long time he finally replied, "I think I met her once, not too clear." His dad said, "Come back right away." When he returned, he saw her sitting steadily as a mountain on the chair. She's ruthless. His mother trembled as she repeated the story, asking him to come up with a solution. He was so angry his mind went blank from the blow. On the coffee table in front of her was all kinds of delicious food and drinks. His family was treating this cheap woman like an honored guest. Lu Qizhong's eyes darted around, finally resting on his mother, if it can be proven. From his parents' subtle expressions, he realized he had said what they wanted to say but didn't dare. That's easy to take care of, the mistress was prepared, unhurried, we can do a paternity test for the fetus and grandparents. It can be done after 7 weeks, and it's been more than that already. Could she really have come prepared for battle? Is she really so vicious that the child is his? Let me make a call to ask. He feigned calmness. He had a friend who went to graduate school for genetics and reproduction. He called him. His mom also wanted to listen in, saying, "Speakerphone, speakerphone." He could only turn on speakerphone. After asking, his friend said it's not called a paternity test, it's called a kinship test. It can be done, but the accuracy is not high. It's best to compare the DNA with several of his direct blood relatives to increase accuracy. His parents immediately turned to the girl. "Young lady, as long as it is confirmed to be our younger sons, we will certainly not shortchange you." On Lu Qizhong's end, he was drenched in cold sweat. Compare DNA with several direct relatives. What if the test results with the grandparents aren't ideal? Wouldn't he have to take the test too? Then it would all be over. After Lu Qizhong returned home, he messaged and called his mistress, but she didn't reply or pick up. She had planned to play him to death. A sleepless night. His parents were old with poor health after losing their younger son. Lu Qizhong would have to be the one to handle getting the paternity test done. But now his mistress was ignoring him. How could he discuss the time and place to meet up and do the test? He was being driven crazy. The next morning, his dad suddenly created a group chat with the old couple, Lu Qizhong's mistress, and now Lu Qizhong himself joining as the older brother. His dad said, "It's best to go to a big hospital in Beijing, more authoritative." Lu Qizhong said, "Okay, I'll make an appointment online first, then book plane tickets after." His mistress said, "Thank you, brother." They had just gotten to this point, when Lu's dad even added his wife to the group chat. Lu Qizhong was shocked, and immediately messaged his dad privately, "Why did you add her in? For such a big matter, we need to discuss and negotiate properly. Also there's no need to hide anything." When Lu Qizhong's wife first entered the chat, she was confused. He quickly gave her a simple rundown of the situation. As she listened dumbfoundedly, in another family group chat she asked her in-laws, "Is she looking for money or what? She seems like a nice girl, didn't mention money. But since she's come to your doorstep, she must want money." Lu Qizhong said, "If she wants money then give her money." Lu's mother said, "Can't just easily give it to her. We don't know the results yet, we'll discuss other matters after the results are out." Everyone was chattering away in this group, while being polite and formal in the other group. Lu Qizhong's mistress called his wife sister-in-law, and gave her ID number and phone to make it convenient for him to make appointments and book tickets. She kept thanking this person and that person, acting clever and demure. Lu Qizhong felt he had failed his younger brother who lay in his grave. He also regretted not just giving her the 50,000 when she asked initially. Now look, for people flying to Beijing and back, doing the paternity test, whining and dining her, then giving her money for the abortion afterwards. His mom might even insist on taking care of her postpartum. All kinds of supplements would be needed, of course. It would definitely end up costing more than 50,000. Most importantly, it was mentally exhausting. Lu Qizhong booked plane tickets to Beijing. His wife also really wanted to go, purely out of gossip. Luckily her child tied her down so she couldn't get away. On departure day, Lu Qizhong didn't look at or say a word to his mistress the entire time. On the plane, his mother sat with her and asked when she met his younger brother, how long they dated for etc. Lu Qizhong sat in front eavesdropping. His mistress glibly answered, not exposing any loopholes. At the hospital, the doctor said there were 2 testing methods. One was chorionic villus sampling from the fetus, the other was drawing the pregnant woman's blood to analyze the fetus's DNA from it. Everyone chose the latter. The doctor asked Lu Qizhong, "You're her uncle? It'd be best if you gave blood too, it increases the accuracy." Lu Qizhong panicked and said, "Let's see the results from my parents first." Then he quickly asked if they could expedite the results, diverting the conversation. His family also didn't insist anymore. In the end they paid extra to expedite it, and got the results in 6 hours. That night the results came back showing the fetus was related to Lu Qizhong's parents. Lu Qizhong almost cried from joy. He didn't have to go get tested himself. These past days had been too tiring for him. First he desperately hoped the child was unrelated to him, then he prayed it must be related, otherwise if the DNA comparison with his parents gave unsatisfactory results, they would surely force him to get tested. Now he breathed a huge sigh of relief, but suddenly realized something was off with his parents. They seemed especially happy. His heart tensed up again. Don't tell me they want her to give birth? Why else would they have added his wife to the group chat back then? The old couple must have prepared themselves back then already to keep this child. That's why they treated this like a huge family matter. Sure enough, Lu's mother held the mistress's arm and asked, now that the child is coming, it's fate, what do you think? The cheap woman said, I'll listen to whatever auntie arranges. Does your family know about this? They don't know. I work alone here, barely make it home once a year. Lu's mother shed tears. It's like our son left us something to remember him by. You know, from young he always did well in school, succeeded at anything he did. He became a department head at an internet company at such a young age. The cheap woman said, I know. Why don't you keep it then, give birth and we'll raise it. After his accident we got over 900,000 yuan in compensation. We'll give you half after the child is born, and I'll treat you like my own daughter. When you marry someday, we'll prepare a dowry for you separately. Lu Qizhong's face turned ghastly white in an instant. Something like this, how could it not be exposed someday? Also he didn't want any more children, and definitely didn't want to keep dealing with this cheap woman in the future. If she was involved at all, his whole family would never know peace. From departure till now, their eyes met for the first time. Both pairs of eyes shot out the poison they had fed in each other. While waiting for the plane, Lu Qizhong immediately ran to the bathroom to call his wife and update her on the situation, and make his stance clear, we can't let her give birth. My parents' health is poor, if they can't raise the child well later we'll have to do it right? Plus raising a child costs so much, it'll all be my parents' money. My parents' money will become our son's money in the future. Don't you think I'm right? His wife was surprised he was siding so firmly with their little family. She quickly became touched and proactive, saying, you're right. So what do we do? Should I try persuading her to secretly get an abortion? Can you persuade her? I feel like she just wants money. I'll try. His wife cautions, mind what you say, don't make her angry. It was the first time in the last 2 to 3 years the couple had been so united. Lu Qizhong went back to the departure lounge and messaged the cheap woman again, let's talk. They sat facing each other but didn't look at each other, just their phones. She replied, okay. I'll give you 50,000, you get an abortion. Saying this now, isn't it too late? Women who have given birth before can be seen from a gynecological exam. How will you explain it to your future partner? I could get 400,000 plus instead, plus a future dowry. Lu Qizhong gritted his teeth, 100,000. The cheap woman replied, 200,000. Lu Qizhong, 120,000, I can't go higher. Cheap woman, 150,000, I can't go lower. Lu Qizhong, fine, I'll borrow it. Lu Qizhong didn't dare tell his wife her asking price, afraid his wife would find it too expensive and haggle with her, potentially causing more trouble. He just said she wanted 80,000. His wife gritted her teeth and took out 80,000 yuan early from a fixed deposit. He also borrowed another 70,000 online. They agreed to meet at the hospital entrance. The cheap woman said, transfer first. He transferred 70,000 to her and said, this is the deposit, I'll give you the rest right after the surgery is done. What if you go back on it? What kind of person do you take me for? What kind of person are you not? Weren't you trying to go back on it at first, saying I don't watch my private life? Did I say it like that? Wasn't it that meaning? Lu Qizhong was too lazy to argue with her, he just hoped she would hurry up with the surgery. Thinking of how he still had to go fool his parents, and his brother had died wrongfully, his heart ached bitterly. He grabbed her sleeve and pulled her towards the hospital. She followed reluctantly, taking just over 10 steps before he had pulled off one of her coat sleeves. She shook him off harshly, and put her coat back on properly, trying to kill me? She growled at him. Don't you try anything funny today. Last time you forced me to. She said, so you'd better not force me today either. I already gave you the deposit, why won't you do it? He was getting anxious. I meant the remaining money. She straightened her clothes and arrogantly strode past him to get a number. Consultation, ultrasound, various tests, finally it was time to enter the operating room. As she changed shoes, she deeply pierced him with her eyes, it meant if you're not here when I come out, you're dead. Lu Qizhong didn't plan on leaving, didn't dare leave either. In that hour of waiting outside, he forgot all the physical pleasures, only hatred remained, hatred on top of hatred. And worry over when he could pay back that 70,000. To alleviate his anxiety, he scrolled short videos on his phone. He inadvertently saw one saying after mating, "The female of many animals will eat the male," praying mantises, octopuses, pythons, and some nameless spiders try to eat each other after mating. Lu Qizhong thought their relationship was like these creatures rather than lions in heat. When the nurse wheeled her out, the anesthetics hadn't completely worn off yet. Her head lolled with drool dripping down, her hair was a mess. Lu Qizhong's sharp hatred for her turned into disgust. The nurse said, "Give me a hand getting her onto the bed." He reached out woodenly, feeling like she was as heavy as a corpse. He dumped her onto the hospital bed and swiftly retracted his hand. She hazily woke up and looked at him once. Ugly as she was, she gave a cold laugh, like a female assassin after a successful murder, cruel and sinister. Lu Qizhong lowered his head and transferred the money on his phone. He said, "If you try extorting again next time, find someone rich." Her phone dinged with a message that the money had arrived. He suddenly thrust his face and upper body towards her. "Right, you won't be able to find someone rich either. If you could have, wouldn't you have long ago?" She looked coldly indifferent, not bothering to respond to his put-down. She had gotten what she wanted after all. Something that could have been resolved with 50,000 initially. On reflection, it was his own mistake. His reminder made her already evil self become more evil. When malevolence contends with cold-heartedness, malevolence wins. "Send a message to my parents, explain things." His tone carried some authority. She rapidly typed a few lines and tossed it in the group. "Uncle, auntie, brother, sister-in-law, I came to the hospital today for a checkup. The fetus stopped developing. I had no choice but to get surgery. I've let you all down." Then she left the group. She didn't look at him again. He didn't look at her either. The doctor said she could leave after observing for an hour if nothing was wrong. He glanced at the clock on the wall, stood up without a word, and left. When he squeezed into the bustling crowds again, he felt somewhat dizzy, remorseful over his previous misconduct.